Tony D and Little Joan here with a Screenwriter's Rant on Roar, a new TV series that's billed as a comedy series, but it comes off more like a Twilight Zone for feminists. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books. Links in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. Books 1 through 8. 8 episodes of this, 8 books of the Pineys. Which will you choose? Well, this is on Apple TV. I don't have Apple TV anymore. And I'm not so sure this is a great idea. The trailer definitely doesn't win me over. It's a little overblown. Not quite sure what the pitch is because, I mean, they're saying it's a comedy series, but this isn't funny. It's odd. It definitely you could go the angle of Twilight Zone-y, but it's weird. So, like, this story is about a man who literally puts his wife on a shelf. Like, he builds a shelf for her, and I guess she lives there? I guess? What? I don't get that. But okay. You know, Twilight Zone story. This one just seems to be a Wild West story about revenge. Dressing as a man to get revenge. This is probably the most interesting one. She has to solve her own murder. She's a ghost who has to solve her own murder. She's apparently, murdered in this costume. I don't understand why she's not dressed that way when she's a ghost, if that's how she died. So she's got to solve her own murder, and each episode, I guess, is called "The Woman Who Did Blah Blah Blah." Another one about a woman dating a duck. Nicole Kidman's in one of them. She's a woman who eats photographs. It's called Roar. None of it makes any sense to me. There's so many conflicting things here. So, if it's going to be a weird show about women, then it should, Roar to me sounds like, what was it? I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. That was the old feminist song. But it doesn't feel like women are empowered by these stories. They're just odd stories that happen to center around women. Now, one of them kind of feels vaguely empowering. It's about a woman who's in an arranged marriage and wants to return her husband. I'm not quite sure how that would work in, I don't know if they're in America or India. And then the woman who has to solve her own murder. That, to me, is a Twilight Zone story. It's not funny. I mean, it's, I'm sure there are amusing moments in it, but it's kind of a dark comedy, maybe. The woman eating photographs is just weird. The Western one just seems straight up Western. This one is a woman who dates a duck. It's just strange. I mean, that one kind of could be funny and wacky. The other ones, I don't know, something about men not listening to women. And this is the big joke. I'm dead, but I'm still getting cramps. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would you still get cramps in the afterlife? That doesn't make any sense. That's a biological function. She's dead. So, doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. This kind of seems all over the map. Some of these stories, I mean, it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong. I like the idea of, and this one, putting the woman literally on a shelf. It's a bit ham-fisted analogy, don't you think? Don't you think that's a bit ham-fisted, writer of this episode? Oh, he literally puts her on a shelf. Oh, that'll sustain a half hour. I guess. That's why I say it should be a Twilight Zone kind of thing. It should be a show title that would, I mean, Roar implies it's all about empowering women. I don't see the woman who was horribly murdered and handcuffed to a tree and has to solve her own murder as being empowered. She's dead. She's dead. This woman also not particularly empowered. Although although I'm sure there's maybe an empowering message at the end. Maybe you could argue the woman who's returning her husband. The Western girl, maybe. The woman dating a duck doesn't seem empowering at all, but I guess it could be. And Nicole Kidman, she's eating photographs. It sounds like a mental problem. Now, that could kind of be funny, but again, it also sounds dark. That, to me, is Twilight Zone-y. That's Twilight Zone territory. So I would have called it something a little more along the lines of that. I'm not sure. Again, I'm big on titles. I spend more time thinking of titles of things than I do thinking of, like, scripting it. Because once I get the title, I'm off and running. But this... It's not... Roar is a bad title for a comedy series. It's not very funny. So, for a comedy series, like, Amy Schumer's sketch show was funny. I enjoyed it. I mean, I thought it was really funny. She had some great episodes. I really enjoyed the one where it was a parody of 12 and a Half Men trying to decide whether or not Amy Schumer was hot. I mean, that was pretty hilarious and self-deprecating, you gotta admit. So something like that, that's the level of comedy you need for a comedy series. It needs to be crazily high, like way up there. And that would fit along with this theme, right? It would be Roar, even though I don't like the title. Roar, you know. It's a parody of 12 angry men trying to debate whether or not this woman is hot. That's pretty funny. And you could probably sustain that for a half hour and make a lot of jokes. But you got to be willing kind of to laugh at yourself. And I think that's always sort of been the problem with women in comedy, that nexus. Women kind of don't want to do that. Their instinct is not to laugh at themselves and not to be self-deprecating. That's their anti-comedy instinct. Because to some extent they're judged by their looks. They want to attract men, and being self-deprecating tends to run against that, except under certain circumstances. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like all over the road. Would I watch this? I would probably watch the Ghost Girl one. That looked interesting. Maybe this one with Nicole Kidman, although I kind of can't stand Nicole Kidman, but it looks like it could be interesting. The other ones, you know, I would give it a chance, but my hopes aren't that high from what I'm seeing here. You know, and this one especially is just, and Nick Kroll's in it, so maybe I'd give the Nick Kroll episode a chance, but it's like they're playing on a stereotype that men don't listen. And I can't tell who's at fault here. I'm sure it's the men because of the series, but she says, you haven't answered any of my questions, and they said, you haven't said anything. Now, are they saying that metaphorically, you haven't really said anything, or is that literal? Is that like she's so in her head, she thinks she's asked the questions, but she hasn't? I don't know. So anyway, this is on Apple TV, so I guess if you got Apple TV, you can watch it. Let me know how it is. I'm a bit on the fence. I think it'll be hit or miss. Don't get your expectations too high on this. I'm not sensing a lot of good comedy here, except for Nick Kroll. He's very funny. Where are the female comedians in this? Are any of these women female comedians? Nicole Kidman, not really. Don't know. Maybe the Ghost Girl is? She's pretty smoking, I gotta say. Which would be the main reason I'd watch that one. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Check us out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for our more base takes. We got a news blast and a Hollywoke hot take, and we'll see you in the next one.